was previously a Tao Fellow at Frontline, where she worked on digital stories and as a reporter for the documentary Police on Trial about the aftermath of George Floyd's murder. Moura has reported extensively in the Brazilian Amazon for outlets including the New York Times, ProPublica, and Foreign Policy. She was the field producer for the National Geographic documentary We Play Today, which has won 2 awards at the 2022 Sundance Film Festival. She served as a producer for the Times investigative video, The Amazon Still Burning, Blank B, which received an award of excellence from Picture of the Year International. And she also worked as a field producer for the video Abortion in the Time of Zika, which has received the first place award from Pictures of International. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Gabby, for having me. Thanks everyone who came here to see the movie and stayed here to talk. I'm very glad to be here and talk about the Amazon, the largest forest in the world. And it's so important. Now many studies are showing that the Amazon is becoming carbon emission, a place emission, emitting carbon instead of being a carbon sink. And we all know how important it is to defend the forest right now. And we just saw this film about how hard it is and how even harder it became during the Bolsonaro administration. And I think it's very important to show exactly, as Nadine was saying, like how it happens on the ground and how people that have a life as like you saw, they're fathers, they have family, but at the same time they want something better for the family, and the path they saw is trying to get more land like in the past. So there's this, we can see the ideology of manifest destiny, and that people have the right and that the forest is not inhabited, but as we could see as well, like there are many people inside the forest, and this history of colonization that has happened in the past and keep happening right now. So my work was especially with the group of farm workers and farmers who formed the Association of Rio Bonito in Rondônia. Rondônia is a state that at the time of the military dictatorship in Brazil was one of the most so-called developed. A lot of people have received money to move from the south parts of Brazil to Rondônia to form associations and to deforest land and create farms. That was seen as something that would make Brazil become a better country or more developed, as richer or something like that. Later, conservation became the priority in Brazil, and we saw a huge fall of deforestation from 26 until 2015, more or less. And then later, when Bolsonaro took power again, he encouraged people to deforest, to do illegal mining, to do illegal logging, and many things like that. So while we were there reporting with these farmers, farm workers, and people who wanted to have this nostalgia, like the Bolsonaro speech had, like go back to that time, everybody could form their association and open the West. It was very interesting to see that coming back and how people didn't see how things had changed all over these years, and even suffering from like the heat or knowing that the forest was better or that the planet is suffering, people still chose to think about the profit that they could have on the land. So thank you so much. Please feel free to ask.
Thanks so much, Paula. So we'd love to ask you some questions about your experience filming this documentary, Deep in the Amazons. And I guess we'll start with the big picture question. What got you interested in this project, and what motivated you to go all the way over to the Amazon to film this, I imagine, over a long period of time? And do you feel like this film was able to produce and make the impact that you envisioned?
Yeah, so after Bolsonaro was elected, I went to the Amazon 5 times with different media organizations. And when Alex Prince, the director of this film, spoke to me and said, "Do you want to go?" And I said, yes, because like it was so urgent to show what was happening in the Amazon after so much effort to conserve the forest. And we were seeing like laws being in the Congress, like people trying to pass laws that would favor deforestation, and also Bolsonaro was taking money from the agencies that he used to protect the forest. So it felt not only that it was very important news-wise, but also planet-wise, that we needed to document what was happening. And about the impact, I didn't expect so many people would see the film and all the projection that it had. We had many community events. The film was in many festivals, and right now there's a media center being built at the Uruguay community where they will produce their own footage.
The Uruguay people's own filming of part of this film at very end, we saw a lot of footage. What reason do you think that it has brought to the film to have these footage in the film from the people themselves? What significance do you think it has allowed for?
It started when COVID hit, and Vitate, he felt like as the leader, he said that that they should close the territory, and so he asked Alex to send more equipment, and they would take the lead from there. And they co-produced the film, and they had a lot of input and also made a lot of decisions, business side and filming side. I think this is very important because so many times indigenous people didn't have agency to tell their stories, and this film brings that. So it's something that I'm proud of.
Then on the other side of the story, we also see in the movie that there were footage or like recordings of farmers and also people who were actively burning and cutting down trees for their own livelihoods. How were you able to convince these people to film those parts of the film when they know that this film, in a sense, is going to be to tell the story of the native people first and foremost?
Yeah, as I said, I worked in the team. We had 2 teams, one team working with indigenous people in Medina, and one team working with the farmers and farm workers. So I was on the team that worked with the farmers, farm workers, settlers. And when we approached them, we would tell them that they would be able to tell their stories. It would be only their words, there wouldn't be narration. So they felt that they could trust us, and we met them many times. Just to give an idea, like it's very far from the capital, Rondônia, and Rondônia is already far from Brazil's capital, or São Paulo, the economic capital of Brazil. So we would go to their homes and talk to them, and little by little gaining the confidence. But I think what made them feel confident is that we said, like, you were going to be able to tell your story your way.
This question might be a little bit personal then. After hearing them, these people who I think a lot of us paint oftentimes as antagonists to Amazon rainforest, hearing their side of the story, do you think it has changed your perception of the whole Amazon rainforest policy issue? That there are people, there are these kind of different interest groups Do you think it has changed your opinions, or it has more complicated the issues for you as well?
Yeah, I think it deepened my understanding, because it's easy to see people in black and white, bad and good, but when you see people have many sides, like we had dinner with them, with the farmers, we saw their love to their children and their family, and at the same time, they were also breaking the law and planning to advocate for the indigenous land to become theirs. So you can see many facets of the people, and also the problem that in Brazil, like, I imagine if Brazil had more opportunities for people to do things differently, would they choose to do differently?
I see. Then one more question about the Uruguay people. I feel like I'm butchering the pronunciation. Could you correct me?
Uruguay.
About the Uruguay people. When you first, I imagine it was probably a very new experience for you to go into the village and meet those people who are living the indigenous lifestyle. What do you think surprised you the most in the filming process about those people in your daily day-to-day interactions?
Actually, I didn't visit the village, unfortunately, but I visited other villages of other indigenous peoples in Brazil as well. And I met Pitate and other members of the Uruguay people in other places. And it really struck me how brave and how adamant they are to protect the forest. It's like there's 0% of doubt that they would give their lives to protect the forest. It's incredible to see, and also to see when indigenous people are inside the forest. Like I was in the forest with Kayapo and Surumi people, and you see how they look at things differently than us. Like they can pay attention to things that you don't even know that is happening. And how like it's so much knowledge, as Pitate said in the film, like that they have, that really there's much to be documented by them.
I feel like we all need to know more about indigenous people like them in Amazon, but there's also many groups of them elsewhere in the world. And I guess as a closing thought, what do you think should be the thing that us and our audience should be paying more attention to and being more aware of in terms of these people in the future in our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, I cannot speak for them, but I think the more you try to understand the way they view the world and understand their culture and learn from their knowledge and respect that. For example, I always remember something Chai Surui said. She said, you're not helping us, we are helping you, because indigenous people, they protect the land that is in indigenous territory, are the land that is protected the most in all the forests. Like they know how to take care. And we, as people, we destroyed the land that we are in many ways. So I think learning from them is very important. And there's a page for the film called the territoryimpact.org that you can learn more about the Uruguay people and how to contact them and participate in their fight.
Thank you so much for that message. And to that, we'll now open questions to the audience. There'll be a mic floating around, so if you have a question, please raise your hand.
What happened to
Hi. Okay. My question is, how closely intertwined is the evangelical church in Brazil with the evangelical church in this country?
I think I don't have enough knowledge to respond to your question. But one impression that I had when there was a barbecue and meeting that we saw in the film. For example, one thing that I paid attention and I thought, wow, things are different here from other parts of Brazil where I grew up, is that the pastor spoke in the first place and blessed the event, and later the priest, the Catholic priest, spoke. So I saw a very strong presence there, but unfortunately I don't know if they have any connections with the American Evangelical Church, but the presence is very big.
I have a question that I was going to ask you about.
Use the microphone.
I'm so sorry. So I was talking to you earlier, and I was just really struck by how touching and sad the farmers are. I mean, they're definitely not demons, and I think that it's really such an unusual movie that we feel sympathy for both sides. I mean, I definitely feel sympathy for Sergio and Martin. And so I guess my question now, I mean, since, it's Lula who's in power, I mean, what would he have to do to win these people over? Because they definitely are not evil, right? I mean, they're not evil people. I mean, so Paula, the government has to do something. What does Lula have to do, to make sure that these people don't just go back again and destroy the forest? I mean, he has to win, he has to defend the indigenous communities, yes, but he also needs to win over the other side as well.
Yeah, I think you answered your question. Yeah, but it's very complicated because in the past, when Lula was in power and Marina Silva, who is the environmental minister now, she was also in power. And they both were the ones who were able to reduce deforestation. But a lot of people, like the ones Bolsonaro got support from, they felt sided by Lula's policies in the past. So I think there's so much more to do to give opportunities that are not only to destroy the forest. I remember there were many initiatives for people to collect, for example, cocoa or collect other like Brazil nuts or other products from the Amazon. But like the work is so hard and the pay is low. So it's hard to convince someone that should you do this instead of raising cows, raising cattle. That's much more money. And after people deforest and put the cattle, later they can plant soy, which is really profitable. So I remember I went before the film for a story with Republica at Chico Mendes reservation in Acre. And it was a reservation. They had to keep the land intact, only a little piece for the forest. But they saw a huge increase of deforestation because people didn't have money. So it's very complicated.
First of all, thank you very much for making this film. It's really important. I wonder if you could describe the nature of the legal claim of the indigenous people on the territory and like how big it is and how strong that the legal framework is, A, and then B, whether or not under Lula they have the momentum and the right to reforest, reclaim that land that's been taken and regenerate it, reforest it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for example, there are many indigenous territories in Brazil that are not recognized, or are many steps to be a recognized territory by the government. but the Uruguay territory is recognized, like they already got the certification and all the anthropology knowledge showing that it's their territory, and was signed by the president and everything. But even that, like it's such a big swath of land that how many people would you need to protect it? I don't know. It's the largest indigenous territory in Rondônia state. And actually part of it is also overlaps with a park that is also recognized. I'm not sure now if it's a state park or a federal park. So in the past, this huge amount of land also had 2 park rangers. But later with the Bolsonaro administration, I think only 1 stayed there. Like how many?
Yeah.
And one of them was threatened by someone from association of Rio Bonito before, threatened to be killed. So it's like, it's very hard to defend. And the second question is about Lula. We had, the elections was very close election. Lula was able to win. He created the Ministry of Indigenous People in Brazil. For the first time we had that, this ministry. And we have Sonia Guajajara, who is the minister, and she during the whole Bolsonaro government, she was the leader of the indigenous people defending them. We also had for the first time now a woman, indigenous woman, being the head of the Indigenous Affairs Agency in Brazil. But still, it's a very big challenge because the Amazon is too big. And the money, now other countries are donating to the Amazon Fund, like Germany and I think Norway, they donate too. I'm not sure if the US is doing that, but so there's a lot of hope that the government will be able to use these resources and this new leadership will be able to curb deforestation, but it's a very large work to do.
Many of us have affiliations with Harvard and perhaps have more privilege and power than we might recognize. And I'm wondering what you would call on us to do to support indigenous rights in the Amazon and to support the continuation of the rainforest, which of course has huge benefits for the planet. But so what as individuals or in our roles would you suggest that we look to?
The territoryimpact.org has many suggestions. And I think like if you get in touch with the indigenous people, they will be able to say better than I.
Hi, Paula. First of all, thank you so much for your powerful work. My question is, a few years after you produced this documentary, a journalist and an indigenous activist were assassinated in the Amazon, doing the exact same job that was portrayed by your documentary. I'm talking about Don Phillips, a British journalist, and Bruno Pereira, who used to work for the Indigenous Affairs Office in Brazil. So my question is, were you concerned about your safety while you were in the field producing, and were you ever threatened? How the violence in the region affected the work you did? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't tell my mom about exactly what we were doing. And I didn't feel very threatened during the territory. We were going many times to their houses. We were working more to have deeper conversations. So I was not in the scenes that you see them burning the forest, so maybe I would be much more afraid if I was there. But we had a security and safety protocol, because this area is, like, when we went to see their homes and staying there, visiting them, there was no phone signal, there was no internet. Some houses had Wi-Fi, so sometimes we could have some signals, and our team was small, only 3 people, while I was there doing the production in the field. So yeah, I was concerned, but we had our safety protocols, so it's fine. But in a project before that, in that New York Times video that you mentioned, we were in a position that we were more harassed, and also suddenly one of the people in that other film, he kind of said, like, oh, if you had done this, you would be dead by now. And I've heard some journalists who came here in other area of the Amazon. So yeah, it's very dangerous, and I think it became even more dangerous. I went, most of the times I went was 2019, but by the time, like 2021, 2022 was really, I think it got worse.
I'm curious what has happened to the people, the settlers and the actual squatter, and when they, I mean, you were working with them individually, when they saw the film, their own voices though, how did they respond?
I don't know if about everyone we were in contact, but I heard from the people on our team who showed them that they were happy with their part, because they were able to tell the stories. As far as I know, I'm not sure, like, if this happened when they only saw their part or after, but as far as I know, they were happy with the result.
And are they there still? What's happened to the settlers?
I'm not in touch with them anymore, but I know they are still there. Yeah. Some of them we don't have contact anymore.
Thank you, Paula, once again, for this amazing film. My question for you is, well, first off, I thought it was really incredible how you guys worked with Uruguay Wawa people and allowed them to truly tell their story. I mean, when they took over the camera and the production, I thought that was really fantastic. I want to know, have you ever done something that collaborative before? And do you think it might inspire future work for you, where you might want to allow your subject to be able to have that much power in telling their own story going forward?
I really admired that we had the co-production with Uruguay Wow, so I hope I can be able to do work like that in the future too. Yes, it's inspiring for me.
Hi Paula, thank you for a wonderful film. I really enjoyed it. My question is, when you were speaking with some of the people who were invading the territory and asking, I guess feeling a sense of entitlement for the land there, did any of them cite or even describe what quality of life had been for them in villages or cities or anything like that, to sort of like explain why they wanted to pick up and mow down the rainforest and live there? Because I don't feel like that's like just a choice you make one day.
Yeah, thanks Anna for this question. Yeah, one of the people that we spoke to, he told us that he worked in a factory. He helped make dolls in this So he had to work like in very high temperatures, molding the doll's head and all this. So he thought like, I should go somewhere where I could have the chance to have my own land. So I heard that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula, for this powerful work. You just mentioned that the Amazon is a very big territory, and I'm just wondering if you are thinking about continuing your filming productions with the rest of the countries that are also part of the Amazon, and if you're thinking about pursuing any other film with any other indigenous communities in a different country.
I haven't thought about that yet, but I really want to go and see the media center that the Uruguay people are building there and see. Apparently, I heard they are starting a podcast with the stories of the elders, and they are also doing a lot of other film productions. So I would love to see what they're doing and see if I can contribute somehow.
Thank you for this. How did the indigenous people get money to, buy their uniforms and what's their source of income?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if I could actually speak about that, but I know Nadine's organization also worked very closely with indigenous people to give support. So I could be wrong, but I believe her organization go and find grants to support them. But it's not like something the Brazilian government supports. It comes from an NGO, yeah. And including like one of the things Bolsonaro really spoke against was the NGOs, so because of their support to protect the land.
The community that we saw, they obviously had like quite a lot of contact with like media and people from the city. And I was wondering whether some of and they referenced it in the film, but like the elders were saying that the younger people didn't know how it was before. I wondered if there's any resistance to the way they're integrating with the new technologies in the way that they're living to try and tell their story, whether there's any resistance to that or other ways that the modern life is like infiltrating into the way their community is living versus some of the uncontacted, whether there's some resistance from elders there at all, like their identity is changing somewhat as they try and protect what was like traditionally their land.
I think, as far as I could see, I never spoke to them about it, but as far as I could see, the Uruguay people welcomed a lot the technology for the things it could bring to them and protect. But I would have to ask them this question.
Can you tell us something about Nadine's introduction to the indigenous people? What in effect drove her, what motivated her for 4 decades?
Yeah, I remember once I was speaking with Nadine for other story that was not related to the film, and she told me how she grew up in an area of Brazil. Her family was, they were, how to say that? Rubber, they worked with rubber, like they took rubber from the forest. And then she, in her house with her family in the forest, she would see indigenous people sometimes come and they would leave some fruits or some food for their family, and they would I think her family would give them some things too, but like never very close contact. And she grew interested in indigenous people, and little by little she got very close and became an activist. And I don't know much more to tell, is what I remember, but it's incredible to see her. She's a force of nature, and she's so compassionate. Like, I've seen her in other moments. Like, she would see someone while we were eating or somewhere else, like we were having breakfast at a market, and she saw a child that was crying, and she went all the way to talk to the child, to talk to the grandmother of that child. She has a lot of love and strength in her heart. It's incredible to be close to her.
I have another question. You mentioned that the film is co-produced, right, with the community, and it seems that some of the sequences are so deliberate. For instance, right after Ari, was murdered, we see this array. We've been seeing the drones, but all of a sudden we see this whole array of technology being used by the indigenous community. And I mean, I wonder if whose decision it was, because that particular insertion of the technology could have gone in any place in the film, but it came right after the murder of Ari. So I was wondering whose decision it was that it should appear at that moment, and also just well, I mean, that I'm interested in technology, but just the way in which, how we feel about drones and just the other technology, whether that has a different meaning in the context of the Amazon and also of the UUAWA.
Yeah, you made me remember the first day I went for my first field producing trip with Alex. We went to see the day Nadine was learning how to fly a drone. And she was learning from an association of, I can't remember exactly, it was some association that was teaching her, and then I believe later she either taught Bitate and other people to do it, but I remember very clearly the first day she was learning that, and how she felt that it could be helpful. And one of the first shots in the film is her showing how the striking difference from the deforested area in the forest. So I think it's many of the technology we have today, for example, satellites. The Brazilian government, they have two systems of satellites, that one is detecting very quickly if there's a deforestation, so they can send the environmental police to curb the deforestation, and the other that measures deforestation. And during the Bolsonaro government, Gabriela, correct me if I'm wrong, he took away he fired the boss of the satellite agency, so he could have more control over the.
Complementing, other than that, inside the Ministry of the Environment, they have an intelligence unit that is always checking the satellite imagery, and that way they can plan better the operations in the field. So what happened is that during Bolsonaro administration, there wasn't that person, so there was nobody to guide the enforcement actions in the forest.
Yeah, and there was no money to send people as well, and nobody to tell people to go. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for all of you joining us on the Q&A today. A screen of the remarks, a recording of the remarks, and then Q&A will be available on CID's YouTube channel. So if you want to look that or a movie, feel free to do that. CID is also looking, this is a separate part, CID is also looking to expand its programming into the undergraduate space. So if any of you guys is a Harvard undergrad and was able to receive our program material from email list or something like that, please feel free to find me. I'd love to talk to you more about more things that CID can do with the undergrad population. And yeah, thank you so much for coming, and hope you have enjoyed the event. Thank you very much.